kids. Surprised it's Miss Cindy teaching Bible study today instead of Miss Val. But we're still going to talk about friendships because it's still September. So one of the things we learned last week from Miss Val was about friendships that lasted a long time and they stuck together. Even though Naomi said, Ruth, you can go home to your family, she said, no, I want to stay with you. We're friends, and I'm going to help take care of you. And that's a really great friendship. But not all friendships are like that. And some friendships are less intense, less together all the time. So we're going to talk about a different kind of friendship today between Jonathan and David. And David and Jonathan, they're in the Old Testament. So they lived a really long time ago. And they lived in the desert. And they wore different clothes and things. And they had to live differently. They had different occupations. They didn't go to the office like your dad does or did at times. So I'm going to show you. These are my little puppets. And this is David. And David is a shepherd, and he's kind of a teenager, young man kind of age when we have this story, when we started this story. So this is David, and he's out taking care of his sheep. And a shepherd, they have to guard them, so they have a slingshot. So David got really good at using his slingshot. He was a really good aim. And a slingshot is like a little U, and it has like a band in it, and you put a rock and you stretch it out and then you let it go, and the rock flies and it hits whatever you're trying to hit. If you're really good, you get it. So if a wolf came around, he would hit the wolf so it would run away and not harm his sheep. So he was really good at his slingshot, and there's a lot of downtime because wolves don't come all around all the time. So he also played a harp, which is a string instrument, and you play it. And he was really good at that because he just sat around singing and playing to his sheep. So then the other characters we have a king. This is King Saul. And he was the king over the area where David lived. And King Saul had a son named Jonathan. So he was Prince Jonathan. So these two lived in a castle, or, had servants to take care of them. They did, what kings and princes do. They run the country. So these two had a problem. I'm going to put David away. He's going to be in watching his sheep for a while. And their problem was Goliath. Now, Goliath was really big, and he didn't want anybody to be in Saul's kingdom. So he stood out there and he would fight anybody, and he would always defeat them because he was so big. He had a big sword, armor, helmet, and no one could get close to him because he was so big to fight him. And so he defeated all of his enemies, and this was really bothering King Saul because his kingdom was getting devastated by this one guy. He was really upset. So along comes David. He's bringing his sheep in to sell the wool. He's coming in, and here is Goliath. And Goliath's like, you can't come in. Now David, he had a special ability because he had his slingshot. And so he didn't have to get right up close to Goliath to shoot him or to knock him down. He could stand far away from that sword and his arm and everything that Goliath used. So he took his slingshot, got a nice rock, pulled back, and bam, hit Goliath right in the head. And of course, that makes Jonathan and Saul extremely happy. Their kingdom is free of that mean old giant, and all because of this shepherd boy who had a great aim with his slingshot. So Saul said, oh, you're great, and why don't you come in my kingdom and play the harp for me? And just be my friend for, as kings and shepherds are. But Jonathan, the son, he was like, oh, that was so wonderful. And they talked and they learned they had a lot in common and that they enjoyed each other's company. So they became fast friends. And because he was a prince, Jonathan had a lot of things that David did not have. So he gave him a coat of armor and his own sword and all these things. So he becomes a warrior. So David gets really good, and Saul, the king, would send him out to do things for him to, defeat other enemies and then come back. And every time he came back as a warrior and he had defeated the enemy, the people got to like David more and more and more. So what happens sometimes when you have more than one friend and the other friends, the other people, like your friend more than they like you? Can you get jealous? Yeah. Well, that's what happened to King Saul. He got jealous. And the more and more that David became what everybody liked and made him a hero, the more Saul got jealous. Now, Jonathan and David, they weren't jealous. They became friends because they were warriors together. They fought together. They were just all together all the time and very good friends. But that made Saul all the more jealous. So Saul decided he was going to kill David so that he would be popular and not David, that David would be gone and he wouldn't have to be jealous of him anymore. So he tricked him into going with him, and then he tried to stab him, but he failed. So then David knew what was going on. He went to Jonathan and he said, Jonathan, your dad is trying to kill me. And Jonathan's like, my dad wouldn't do that. He's my dad. He likes you. Look at how much he likes you. And David's like, no, you have to believe me. He really does want to kill me. And even though Jonathan didn't want to believe him, he did. He said, okay, let me test this out. I kind of believe you, but I'm not really sure. So let me test this out. I'm going to go talk to my dad. And if I believe my dad does want to kill you, I'm going to send a signal. And if you get that signal, run away. Go out and live somewhere else. And we just won't be together anymore. As much as I miss you as a friend, I want you to be safe. If my dad doesn't want to kill you, I'll send you a different signal and you can come home and we can be friends like we always are. So David went out into the forest and waited for the signal. And Jonathan and King Saul were together, and David kind of did this test on his dad because David didn't come for dinner, and normally David came every night for dinner. So 3 nights in a row, David didn't come for dinner, and King Saul got angry. He wasn't worried about David. He was angry that David was there, and he said to Jonathan how David is probably trying to overthrow him and trying to take the kingdom. And that was Jonathan's knowledge now. Yes, Dad does want to kill my friend. So I've got to send him the signal to run away and go live somewhere else and be safe and wait for my dad to either stop being angry and jealous or for my dad to die. And then he can come back. And we'll always be friends, but we won't be able to see each other. So that's exactly what Jonathan did. He sent the signal, and David went to another country to live. And they stayed friends. They communicated in different ways. They couldn't see each other anymore, just kind of like we are now. They couldn't really see each other, but they stayed friends. And they communicated through messengers and letters and things like that. And David became king. But that's another story, so we'll talk about that some other time. Right now we're just talking about friendships, right? We have friends that we really want to be together with, but sometimes we can't. But that doesn't mean we lose our friendships. Sometimes our friends tell us things that we don't want to hear, just like David told Jonathan that his father was mean and wanted to hurt him. He didn't want to believe that, but he did after he tested it, and he kept friends. So those are the kinds of things to be a really good friend, we have to listen to our friends. We have to be there for them, even when we don't want to believe what's going on. And we have to override any kind of jealousy we might have of our friends. So I have another kind of thing to talk about in friendships, different kinds of friendships. This bar is a magnet. You just have to trust me on that, but that's what it is. First, I have this little piece. It looks like metal, and it should stick, right? But it doesn't. No stick. So this is people like we meet. Maybe we say hi, and they kind of drift in and out of our life. Maybe they're just neighbors that we wave to in the car, or whatever. But they're not close friends. And then we have this, which is another friend, and it sticks. Okay? But this may be a little weaker friendship. So if one of those negative things happen, we get jealous, they call us a name, they steal one of our toys, and didn't mean to take it away, but they wanted it, so they took it. Those kinds of things. There's some trauma that happens, and boom. It doesn't stick, right? It just falls off. They don't come and apologize, or we don't apologize to them. We don't say, hey, I understand you were mad and you called me a name, but it's okay, we can still be friends. That doesn't happen. So they're a little stronger friends, but not the best of friends. And then we have really strong friendships. And those are people that are like Jonathan and David. It doesn't matter if they say negative things, or if they take a toy and then not bring it back, or they just have a falling out. They know how to say, I'm sorry. They know how to bring the toy back. And you know how to forgive them and say, that's okay. And they know how to forgive you. Maybe you're the one who took the toy, or maybe you were having a bad day and you called them a name, but they knew how to say, I accept your apology when you apologize to them. So those are really good friends. They're never going to go away from your friendship. They may go away physically. Maybe they had to move. Or maybe like this virus time and they can't come into your house and you can't go to their house. But you're still really tight friends. And the tightest friend of all, the one who is most there for you always, is Jesus. He's your friend. No matter what, you can get mad at him because he didn't answer a prayer or whatever, but he's never going to let go of you. He's always going to be your friend and always be there for you and always forgive you. So just want to talk about that friendship for a time and know that hopefully Miss Val, Miss Jessica, and Miss Cindy are friends with you like this, and you'll remember us for always. Have a wonderful week and watch Miss Jessica's craft video after this. Love you.